The next couple of days are going to be extremely important for anybody in crypto. Take a look at this. Throughout the week, specifically on Friday, we've got ourselves the non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate numbers coming out. But interestingly enough, even starting from Wednesday, we have more and more data coming out regarding employment, or just the general labor market. Take a look at all these numbers right here. And since that was such a big factor over the past month, any further weakness within this area, or perhaps any crazy strength, could be that catalyst that the crypto market could need. And this actually goes further than just crypto. It goes to traditional markets as well. But as we've seen over the past month or so, even directly on crypto, it has some very dire effects. Having said that, it's been a really crazy market. I think we can all attest to that. Because if you take a look at gold, and I keep doing that every other day or so, the gold run is absolutely insane. Gold just made its 38th all-time high of 2025, with gold futures now up 43% from the start of the year till now. This puts on gold on track for its best year since 1979, as the Fed cuts rates into 3% plus inflation. Gold knows what is coming next, and that, on the one hand, worries me. On the opposite side, puts me in the nice spot. Why? Because Bitcoin, which again, whenever I say Bitcoin, I mean Bitcoin first, altcoins afterwards, right? Bitcoin usually leads that charge. No altcoin is really separate from it. Some of them, like the DEXs now, whenever there's a crazy amount of hype, are, but we like to just say Bitcoin with alts to follow rather than specific coins there, or altcoins or crypto, because usually it's Bitcoin that sets the charge, and Bitcoin is seen as that reserve currency that relates very much so to gold. And I was going to say, theoretically speaking, gold and Bitcoin should move more in unison, but since they don't, it does bring up the question of, if people right now are buying gold in preparation for what's about to happen next to the traditional markets, why is Bitcoin being stagnant? An interesting observation could be that Bitcoin actually also goes up when the stock market does well, but a counter would be the stock market has been doing some record-breaking numbers as well. So why are our cryptos not going up? Nobody can answer that, and one of the answers people publicly and often like to state out there is manipulation. They do not want cryptos to go up too much too quickly. All I want to say about this situation here is take a look at the 38 number. So this is what I often say about when to cash out your cryptos. Gold just made its 38th all-time high of the season, right? The reason we often take a look at this number is usually in a bull run, in an altcoin season, you see maybe 100 all-time highs. But actually, when you really start taking a look at the amount of times that hits an all-time high in a season, it's quite a lot, it's quite frequent, and it's quite passionful in a very short amount of time. If we take a look, for example, at the current season, when you really start breaking it down in comparison to previous times, there's really been no crazy rush, or let's call it run, that there usually is for every season. Like, okay, if I zoom in now, for example, on this period right here, the 2018-2017 bull run, or the all-time high, whatever you want to call this, the season of that, you can see just how massively many times, I don't know if there's a way to see the exact number for it, but just a crazy amount of times every red dot is a new all-time high it made. If we then take a look at the 2021 season, which we can do hopefully a little bit more like this, here we go. You can see as well, in the run-up, it went from about, let's say, $20,000 to $60,000 in the snap of an eye. This took what, like 1 month or so? Just quickly confirming here. This was about, let's say from December at $18,000 to the end of February, so about 3 months, we went to $60,000, and you see how many all-time highs it made in that season. Now, where do we exactly look for this run, right? If I copy the entire run out here, we have this one little skirt upwards, but that was really an okay move. This is like the October to January, I'm going to call it, of bullish momentum in the crypto market. It was good, but it was quite small, and even the altcoins saw something nice. It's relatively comparable, I'd say, to one of these earlier pumps, what we saw back in like 2020 or earlier in 2021. It doesn't feel like the all-time high, because even right now, or even back then, Ethereum didn't break an all-time high. Many of the coins did not. And that brings up an interesting point of if we take away those numbers and from let's say the December period of last year and just take a look at 2025, right? It's interesting that gold made 38 all-time highs this year. And Bitcoin made how many? Well, almost none. One interesting observation I've covered multiple times throughout the past couple of months is, and this is something interesting, all right, that gold and Bitcoin do have some sort of connection potentially, or Bitcoin and M2 have some sort of connection potentially. Because what essentially has happened throughout the recent history here is that global M2, so the money supply, it moves up ridiculous amounts, right? And as the money supply increases, Bitcoin has a bit of lag, about a couple months, but it tends to increase as well. Now, recently here, this has really not been the case, some people might argue, but hey, perhaps you're just looking at the wrong chart, or you realize this, and this is a very key part that many people fail to realize. Both of these are ever growing upwards. They're basically, we know their chart is going to look to the right and to the upwards. So they're not going to be perfectly aligned, but generally speaking, since they follow the idea that it goes from the bottom left to the top right all the time, you know, they don't necessarily have to look even similar at all, because we know they eventually will cross the same path. That's why I don't attribute that much to charts like this, because sure, they can direct or they can showcase direction, but we know the direction already, which is to the right and upwards, right? So, and Bitcoin versus gold as well. Here in this case, it shows gold versus Bitcoin with 200 days of lag, and indeed, there is some interesting correlation there. I'm not sure if there's a really perfect one throughout time, because in this time, 2021, it was almost inverse. Here in this time in 2022, it was almost inverse. And for the rest, surely, it's been mostly the same to the right and to the upwards direction. But again, that's the whole industry. Cryptos, thus far since inception, have always gone to the right, which means further in time, and upwards, which means up in price. And so, from my own perspective, all we gotta do is be patient enough to sit through some of these down periods, you know, these little dips, these little falls. And a big part for me is my bot trading strategy, as you guys may realize, because it automatically buys every single dip and it automatically sells on the way upwards. This bot, for example, right here, my CoinBot stack, was minus $110,000 2 days ago. Right now, it's only minus 60. You may still think that's a massive loss, and I get it. But understand that throughout this process of making a massive loss and then getting back into profit, it is cashing out ridiculous amounts of Solana, or at the bottom here, XRP. And that's a big part of it, that there's a very beautiful profit-making strategy involved. Or at the same time, some of the bots that's been running for a longer amount of time will almost never really get back into a loss, because there's so much in the profit here. On our 55K, we already cashed out $29,000, and still, just from our buying price to now, we're up about 26, so the bot is up 55,000. But even for Bitcoin, this is the one I should size into more, but it's hard because the price was just so juicy. You know, because we already cashed out about 20% or $10,000 on our $50,000 bot, it's just hard for it to get into a really bad spot again. So these are all chilling. That's why even though the market dropped so much, it's still in a massive amount of profit. And if you want to find out more about it, by the way, I always have a little tutorial right here. But you can also just check it out with the first link, claim yourself a bonus with the second link, as sometimes I have some nice trading competitions for y'all. Right now, I don't think I will have one. And if you're wondering about all my coins, as I stated before, it's a game of patience, right? Here's, for example, XRP. All I'm doing is waiting for XRP to make that breakout. Does it have to be today? Does it have to be tomorrow? No. But this is the only chart I'm watching here. I'm realizing, hey, we're slowly but surely trickling down, and we're waiting for that one spark. And XRP has done this many times before. If you take a look at how the past couple of months have looked as well, it was slowly but surely trickling down before just a few weeks of absolute destruction in a positive sense. And before that as well, this was like 7 years. But in reality, the shorter term, it was like from the peak of the 2021 bull market all the way towards here, November of 2024, until all of a sudden, after slowly but surely declining, it was a massive spark towards the upside. XRP does this time and time again. Slowly but surely trickle down before a massive surge upwards. I'm waiting for it. And fun fact, I see now that my ETH trade and all the trades I opened recently are back into profit. Remember when I opened an ETH trade about $250,000 worth by accident? Because I set orders and forgot, which is a beautiful thing when it comes to crypto. They're in profit now as well, so we're doing good on that. Anyway, it's a beautiful day. I'm just buying more coins every single day. I'm not really too worried about it. Sure, things will get manipulated, but it's just a test of patience, really, right? As long as you understand the charts, you understand money supply, gold, Bitcoin, they always look the same. Why? Because they're to the right and upwards. It makes life easier for you because you realize that most altcoins follow this. And so they have their specific periods, sure. But as long as you're on the right place, the right time, which is almost certainty if you're watching the videos daily or you're involved with crypto daily, It's about to be a beautiful period, man. It's about to be a beautiful period, man. That's just my opinion. Wanted to quickly get this news out to y'all, and I'll see you guys again in another crypto video somewhere later today or tomorrow. Who knows?